Welcome to another Pro Football Doc Sports Injury Central podcast. Special guest. I would say he's a gold and platinum guest, but it is Mike Silver himself, a good friend, joining us here, and he really doesn't need any introduction. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, I need plenty of introduction. Just you can talk as long as you want about me before you have me on. That's called build. That's called build up.
Build up. The number one blocker on Twitter, all sorts of things. Actually, I'll tell you, build up, Mike Silver. Before I met you, and you've always been very kind, and we have some mutual friends. You know how I knew you as? Like in the locker room, you were really respected by the guys. They're like, "Oh, that's Mike Silver." Like, that's the one thing that stood out to me. This is during the point in time that I gave a lecture once, Mike, to my fellowship group where I did fellowship. They wanted to hear about the media stuff, and the title that they came up with for me to talk about was "Crossing Over to the Dark Side," the media side, and that's the way doctors viewed it. You guys were the dark side, the enemy, like HIPAA, don't talk to them, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
And players to some extent too, but you were different. Somehow you were always outside.
Look, it was a different era. There was a lot of, there were no cell phone cameras. There was more trust at the highest levels on both sides in terms of off the field. And, I did a book with Dennis Rodman. I kind of feel like away from the facility and off the field and late into the night, I had a chance to set myself apart from some of my peers. I remember one scene vividly. Out one night with a bunch of Chargers. I believe it was LT's birthday celebration. And I had many drinks, and I was not the only one. And at one point, LaTorsha, his lovely wife, and I were just getting after it on the dance floor. And I am not a good dancer at all, but I was drunk enough to go for it. And, she was humoring me. And LT kind of looked over at one point, was in a conversation, looked over, saw me, and was just like, Silver. I mean, he knew I was harmless, but also I was like getting after it with his wife on the dance floor. He handled it well. But yeah, look, I just, my view, it was nuanced, right? Like, I didn't believe if we're all out together, it's like, oh, I'm not every little thing is reportable, right? We're trusting that I don't want my excessive drinking, out there either at the time. But, but they also knew what I did and respected me. And I could go to people that I'd been through those experiences with in a crowded locker room, even years later, and say, hey, what happened on that, weird play in the third quarter when, everyone was out of position, take me through that. And there was a level of trust that wouldn't otherwise exist. So to me, that was work ethic. My wife and I had many discussions about this where she's like, you just like to party. And I'm like, don't get mad at me that I had a skill set that lent itself to this job. But to me, it's work ethic. If I'm out late with people or using my immense personal charm to, to connect with them in a way where we can hang out off the field, whether it's going to the dry cleaners or church in the case of Kurt Warner or the bar, that's a way for me to get better access and better relationships. And, and then you got to write it, which is a whole other endeavor. But it was, I always had great Charger experiences, really dating to that. I had just gotten to Sports Illustrated in late November of '94. The first story I did for them was a cover story on the Steelers, who had come into LA and thumped the Raiders and really announced themselves as the team to beat in the AFC. And then at being the new guy at SI, I did not cover that Niner Cowboy championship game. I went to Pittsburgh and covered the Chargers Steeler game. And I've never seen a town pre-celebrate quite like that. Friday and Saturday night in Pittsburgh, it was as though the Steelers had already gone to the Super Bowl, and it was just festive, and nobody thought the Chargers were really a thing. And when they won that game and Dennis Gibson reached his hand over and tipped the ball away, and Junior had like 96 tackles on the first drive, and that incredible game. That might be my favorite locker room in history. That the ebullience and joy and innocence of that 94 Charger team having done something epic in Pittsburgh that nobody thought they could do, and they just let it all out. The quotes were incredible. It was so fun. And, sadly, as you know, we've lost so many people from that team. It just sucks.
Yeah. Well, you were in bed with the Chargers before I was. In '94, I was working with the Vikings. I wasn't in San Diego yet. And
okay, what was your first year?
Well, my first year in San Diego was 95-6. My first year with the team was 96-7. So I missed that Super Bowl with the Chargers, et cetera. I missed that season, but obviously a lot of the same people. And I can vouch for Mike Silver, your ability to hang, and your Cal education has been put to good use. I still remember, like, people don't realize one of the more exclusive parties, honestly, is the Super Bowl party, after for the winning team. Like, it's like totally credentialed. I remember, I had some friends, so, I get snuck in, but I remember you were there late, and then you wrote like a 2,000-word story by the next morning, 6 a.m. I was impressed.
Yeah, that's how we had to roll. I look back at, I wrote more than 70 cover stories for SI and a whole lot of others, and worked there for 13 years. And, at the time we felt like we had most of the great sports writers in America, and we were pushing each other and writing at a really high standard and reporting, because our thing came out 3 days later and we had to have exclusive stuff in there. And I look back at some of the stories and I'm like, how did I physically do it? How did I get all that stuff? How did I focus all night? Because we did write all night. And, extrapolating it to this era where people freak out over little revelatory bits of information. If I had just gone and tweeted that stuff, and like, people would be like, "What? How did they find out?" But I'm proud of it. It was hard, and now I kind of do it a different way.
A lot of different way. You're doing a lot of different things now. Obviously, your NFL prowess, but don't forget about basketball. You're all over the Warriors and your buddy Steve Kerr. Now, you got a Bay Area series, Sacramento and the Warriors. You actually live closer to Sacramento, right?
I do. I do live closer to Sacramento. I did suggest to Steve Kerr, and I'll get to that in a second, that when I saw the matchup, that they meet at like Rodriguez High in Fairfield and just play all 7 games there, it would be, right around the midpoint. So, so I was born in San Francisco and then grew up in LA, and I was like the only Niner fan, Warrior fan, A's fan, like at my school, pretty much. And back then, mostly the LA teams owned the Bay Area teams until I was 16 and the Niners won the Super Bowl. And I got a lot of crap from my friends. And one of those friends was a big Laker fan, Steve Kerr. We ended up co-writing a sports column together for our high school paper, and really getting into a lot of different sports things together. But I obviously outlasted him and won that battle, because he is now coaching the team that I love. And he will, when I shamelessly go to victory parties and things like that, he knows that I earned my Warrior fan chops back in the day when it was a lot less thriving. But honestly, like, I'm super stoked for the city of Sacramento and the Kings, and it's been 17 long years. I'm going to go to the game Monday, game 2. I can't wait to experience that atmosphere. I wish the two teams were playing other opponents, because I could take joy in hopefully watching each of them win a series or two. But I grew up a Warrior fan. I'm now a columnist for the San Francisco Chronicle, so I can't really be a fan. But, because Steve Kerr and I are close friends, it's really hard for me not to, want my buddy to do well. So I'm trying to straddle all of that and do journalism in 2023. But I'm excited to go to game 2.
Yeah, it's a tough job, but I got to say, and I know you're a big fan of Steve Kerr's, obviously, as well as a friend, but figuring out the Warriors this year, the punch, all this, that's and keeping the team together, that's a Herculean task.
Yeah, and look, they lost 29 of their first 36 road games. I Steve and I were not math geniuses in high school when we took classes together, but I think we would both conclude that's not good. 7-29. They really struggled on the ball defense, especially having Wiggins and Gary Payton now there should help with that, and they did play better defense. I thought in game one. The punch was really brutal, and the subsequent video surfacing, and giving up on the Wiseman experiment. There's been kind of a lot of stuff. Wiggins being gone, obviously, for the last 10 weeks, but I wrote about this for the Chronicle leading in. To me, the best moments of this 9-year run, and it's 9 years I never thought I'd experience as a Warrior fan, let alone a friend of the coach. My favorite moments have all been when they've had to confront crises and Steve's had to problem solve, and there've been more of them than is commonly remembered. At least I know every one of them, starting in 2015 when they were down 2-1 to Memphis in the Western Conference semis, and he put Andrew Bogut on Tony Allen and shifted the series. But sometimes it's just Steph or Clay or one of these transcendent players just doing something epic, and you go, well, that's not necessarily tracing directly to the head coach, but he's also done a lot of strategic things in times of crisis that problem solve, and so I love that about him. It's really my favorite thing in basketball, other than seeing him get teed up, or better yet, ejected. We went to a game in Oakland a few years ago, and we were sitting in his seats with I think with his wife Margot, and Steve got teed up early, and he was not leaving. He was still screaming. He was going to get ejected. But Mike Brown, who at the time was his assistant and now is the Kings coach, is a big guy, went out and just got Steve like this so he could pull him back as he's still yelling at the ref and get him back to the bench. And Steve managed to coach the rest of the game. So afterwards, we were all hanging out in the little coach's locker room having a beer, and I saw Mike Brown. I was like, dude, that was the greatest performance. That was incredible. I can't believe that you kept him in the game. And, we had a good laugh. But yeah, I mean, other than seeing my friend lose his mind in public, which, of course, I've seen in private plenty of times, and it's awesome. I love this. So them being down 1-0, I thought they played really well, but them being down 1-0 makes it even cooler for me, as that person who really enjoys seeing them fight their way out.
Well, to me, that's the most interesting thing about what you do, Mike, and your relationship with people. Uh, because I'm quite sure, not only with the Warriors, but let's say with the Brock Purdy situation or the Trey Lance, you actually know more than what you're quote saying a lot of times. And what's the latest on Purdy and or Lance, I guess? And he had this interesting quote, right? I'm sure you saw it, that he's not sure when he's going to play or something to that effect.
Yeah, and look, you've helped me understand the Purdy thing from a medical perspective, and so let me take it back. So I was a young beat writer covering the 49ers, first for the Sacramento Union, then the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, starting in 1989. And in 1991, Joe Montana had an elbow injury. I believe, and you'll have to correct me, I believe it was the pronator teres tendon that on his throwing arm that was torn. He had surgery and ultimately had a second surgery to clean up scar tissue. He missed all of the 1991 season, coming off 2 MVPs and already probably right up there as the greatest of all time. Steve Young came in, won the passing title, but they had a rough year and didn't make the playoffs. The next year, it was going to be like, well, Joe and Steve, And Montana was trying to work his way up in training camp to throwing, and it just wasn't right. And ultimately, what was happening is, and you'll have to help me through this, but the scar tissue was pushing on the ulnar nerve in a way that was numbing, I think, these two fingers, the outside fingers. And so he just couldn't throw it. And I'll never forget when he just kind of pulled up one day in training camp, just stopped throwing, and he walked up the field, and we all chased after him in hot, dusty Rockland, California, kind of suburban Sacramento. And I'll never forget, it was on CNN and everything. And I was in Birkenstocks and, a Huck Finn hat and whatever. And I still led the pack of journalists in Birkenstocks. So I wanted an endorsement deal from Birkenstock. That's back when I had more speed. And so Montana ended up missing the entire 92 season, except they had already clinched everything on the final game of the season. They activated him, and he came back and played the second half of a game again that they won against the Lions. And then he served as the backup in the playoffs. But that was it. He was traded to Kansas City. Young was the MVP in 92. He was traded to Kansas City before the 93 season. He came back and had two really, really good years and threw the ball well. But so I have PTSD when it comes to quarterbacks and throwing elbows. And I've been saying from the second he heard it, and certainly when I saw the reports of what they said it was, I was like, look, you can take none of this for granted. Hopefully he comes back and is what he was, first of all. And secondly, whenever that is. And so I never really bought right into the 6-month thing, but it seems to me that they've gotten what they consider to be good news so far.
No, and I think that's correct. But in game, in that championship game at Sports Injury Central, we were tweeting and writing that's his ulnar collateral ligament, and he wasn't coming back. And I find it interesting how certain press, not you, but certain press, have taken the cheese of it's not a Tommy John.
Yeah.
It is absolutely the Tommy John ligament. Is it the classic Tommy John reconstruction surgery as opposed to a Tommy John repair? Yeah, okay, fine. But and then at the Super Bowl, we chatted on this. This is there was a reporter that said, "Oh, he's all set to have surgery in another couple of weeks. He's going to meet with the doctor the day before, and he'll be ready for training camp." I mean, that's like declaring you had a successful draft before the draft even happened. Declaring you had a successful draft the minute after the draft happens, the minute after surgery happens, a successful surgery is still a stretch. But that's like you haven't even seen the doctor. And obviously when he saw the doctor, there was delays. And what I've been saying all along is it is not impossible for him to be ready for the start of the season, but it is far from a guarantee. And therefore, John Lynch, who we all love, right? He's a San Diego guy. I actually know him fairly well. Smart guy. They're not going to get caught with their pants down again, like, without a quarterback, with a Super Bowl team ready to win without a quarterback. So they're going to have some contingency plans. Right now, Sam Darnold, signed, and obviously Trey Lance is coming along, but we'll see what happens.
Well, we know they reached out to Roethlisberger last year now because Roethlisberger has said that. I am 100% convinced they will at least call Brady again, as they should, by the way, because this is the deal. Until Brock Purdy suffered that injury, their plan was settled. It had originally been, we're going to trade up to 3, get Trey Lance, and have a rookie quarterback deal and pay everyone around him and make this run. And then Trey Lance hasn't gone as planned, but they took a guy at 262 the next year, and Brock Purdy did enough in his time to convince Kyle Shanahan, we could do it with him. And you can't even reopen his rookie deal for 2 more years. It's the cheapest possible deal because it's 262 slot. And so they were good. So whatever happened in that game, it was it. Brock Purdy was the guy. Worry about the rest. Pay Bosa, go around him. Well, the only thing that could have happened in that game to mess with that plan happened, right? If he had broken his leg, it would have been like, oh, God, we lost. It's going to be a brutal, leg rehab. But we know Brock Purdy's the guy. We literally can't be sure now I think they think it's going to eventually, probably this season come back and he'll be that guy. But yeah, you have to have contingency plans. And Brady always made the most sense to me under that scenario because you have to pay him, but it's just 1 year. You're not looking at Brady, for a bunch of years. Rodgers, you got to think about more years. You're paying him. Lamar, you're thinking about many, many years. The best guy to fit in for a short term would be Brady. I don't think Brady's going to say yes, but they'll call. They think they can do some things with Darnold. Other people have thought that before. Kyle's amazing when it comes to this stuff, but I think maybe there's a little bit too much optimism about, they got Sam Darnold. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Trey Lance has a lot of potential and is a smart guy. So I've kind of always thought there's a way. He was raw. He could take a leap. But, he was the guy all last offseason. Obviously, they didn't love what they saw. They ended up hedging and getting Jimmy Garoppolo back. I think it's possible they could develop Trey Lance this offseason and he'll take a leap and he'll start the season and not Sam Darnold and it'll be awesome. But, they're not counting on that. And so it may be a situation where they're just trying to get through the first month or two and hope that Purdy can come back and be that guy and then they can rally.
I'm surprised. I don't know what your thoughts are that the 49ers didn't go Matt Ryan.
Yeah, I thought that too. And I know on Matt Ryan's side, there was, I don't know if Matt Ryan was interested, but I know that the people repping him liked that idea. I have not talked to Matt about it, but, I think, Kyle obviously had that great history with him where they kind of had a choppy first year. And then the year two, he was the MVP. They went to the Super Bowl. I don't know if you know this, Dave, but they had a 28-3 lead in the third quarter of that Super Bowl. I don't know if you've ever been told that, but the Falcons did, in fact, lead that game. But, so it made some sense. Is Matt Ryan, has he dropped off like every other quarterback not named Brady does at that age? Also there was a sense of if Matt's here, but really it's Purdy's team, we're waiting on him and we're not even sure because Trey Lance might make the jump. Is Matt going to be comfortable just kind of being there as maybe a guy who plays, but, might have to be a backup? I think they wanted to know the answer to that and probably wanted to hear that from Matt. But, for whatever reason, they decided that Darnold was the opportunity they wanted to get after in the short term.
Yeah, well, that 28-3, that Super Bowl, I remember everything about it, and we can talk offline, but after that game, that's the only Super Bowl trophy I ever held.
Ooh, well, I hope you didn't. Wasn't that the Super Bowl where Brady's jersey got stolen? So I hope.
I'm sure I was on the film walking through the locker room, but I didn't do anything with the jersey.
Hope you weren't holding that. Yeah, no. Well, that's cool.
No, and it's because I've had opportunities to touch other Super Bowl trophies, but I just wouldn't do it. I don't know, because it's just not, just like in my jerseys or whatever in my office, I wouldn't ever buy a jersey and put it in the office. It has to be from an athlete that I've done surgery on or whatever. It's an ethical thing for me. I want to ask you, since you're
Jared Goff, that's Jared Goff's helmet from when he was at Cal. He gave that to me. So thanks, Jared.
Oh, that's cool. Well, that's interesting. So not only with Jimmy G, but with Jared Goff, what we do medically, Jimmy G, we were saying the 49ers hiding behind health by not returning him to play from that high ankle when they returned George Kittle to play from that cuboid. And sure enough, the 3 first-round draft picks happened. Jared Goff, your buddy, I actually met Jared through you in the Super Bowl in San Francisco. You held something up there. This is before he was drafted number 1.
Yeah, I had an event at Henry's in Berkeley. Yeah,
on campus there, your school. Thank you for that. But what I was, for Sports Injury Central, Pro Football Doc, I was like, Jared Goff, his thumb, book it. He is playing. He is starting that playoff game against Seattle. And 90 minutes before the game, news breaks he's not the starter.
But that
And of
wasn't
course,
because of
I'm
the
getting a
thumb.
lot of grief. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong.
That's because of the coach, not that wasn't the injury. That was
Exactly. And you know how we knew that. So I thought about that, and that I actually doubled down, not only because he came in and played 3.5 quarters for John Wolford, but to me, the key was you don't go into a playoff game. You don't go into a regular season game with 1.5 quarterbacks. If they weren't sure about Jared Goff's health, you can start Wolford, activate Goff, but you have to have Blake Bortles as the other. Blake Bortles was inactive. That told you Jared Goff was healthy. And what it told me is if they think of John Wolford as here, if they think of Goff as here, they think of John Wolford as here. Or if they think of Wolford here, they think of Goff here. In other words, not being there for practice was enough to tip the scales to start Wolford, or there was more to it. Bottom line, as you said, he's fallen out of favor, and obviously he got traded.
You saw what happened after that season. Sean McVay was pretty much done with Jared Goff. And by the way, I'm more on Jared's side on this. I'm just saying there had been Sean McVay had hit a wall where he's like, I'm done with this guy. Wolford, because Goff hurt the thumb, came in and played that last game of the regular season, which they had to win in Arizona. He threw a pick six on the first play, and then he scrambled around and did a few things, and they won. And Sean was like, sweet. And Jared was very, very upset that he was not starting that game because he fought his way back to get back with the thumb very quickly. He got 0 reps. They were in a terrible place. And what he did coming off the bench very early because Jamal Adams slammed John Wolford into oblivion. I thought what he did in playing that game, and he wasn't amazing, but he had no reps and a banged up throwing thumb, and they won that game. Well, Sean McVay was going to then come back and start John Wolford in Green Bay the next week if John Wolford had recovered from, I believe they called it a neck injury. I viewed it more as Jamal Adams tried to separate this part of his body from the rest of his body and almost succeeded. And by the way, Sean McVay's opinion of John Wolford in that building and on that staff was singularly elevated. The assistant coaches and other players were like, play 16 for the most part. Sean just saw something in Wolford that maybe still does that,
But all we saw and all I saw is a classic example of hiding behind health. Like it's the thumb, but it really wasn't the thumb. He clearly
and so I began to understand that around that time. Like I knew it had been bad, but and I know Sean and Jared both very, very well, and I'm glad that each of them has moved on to a place that he is enjoying more than how it ended there. But I started to understand in that right around that same time, like, oh, this is bad.
And you just said something to tie back to Purdy that to me is very interesting. As much as you worry about Purdy's elbow and what it's going to be, Purdy's a young quarterback. You just said Jared Goff without any reps that week, whatever. Purdy's still a young quarterback. He's not going to get off-season reps. Okay, he's with the team in OTAs, but he's not throwing the ball. He's not getting the reps. That could stunt the development.
Okay, but three words. Kyle saw enough. Kyle's convinced. We can all talk about, I don't know how good Brock Purdy, he was. And I think a lot of fans need to constantly do this because the draft is so overvalued relative to its actual impact on football and life because people get so worked up about it that along with that, it's hard for them to shake draft pedigree. And so it takes something epic to do it. Tom Brady, okay, people finally stopped thinking of him as 199, but like, it's just a tendency to think Trey Lance, 3 1s, number 3. It's like, but Trey Lance, and then you're like Brock Purdy, 262, and so
balances out.
But it's like, oh god, Brock Purdy's not really that good. I haven't seen enough. Well, maybe you haven't. I'm just telling you, it's Kyle's offense. He does this. I'm telling you, Kyle saw enough. He's convinced. So Kyle could be wrong, but I'm just saying it doesn't really matter who we think is good. It matters who
Oh,
Kyle
no,
thinks
I'm
is
just
good.
saying. I'm not saying
No, I
Brock
don't.
Purdy
I don't
isn't
mean
the
you.
guy. I'm just saying,
I mean
how do
you,
you
the
know?
fans.
It's another hurdle for Purdy, a young quarterback, not to have reps. All right, I know we're going overtime here. I want to ask you about the owners. Okay, so the Commanders are selling. Arizona's getting grief. Tell me your thoughts about that NFLPA survey and how they what happened there, and not only facilities but training staffs, this, that, the other. I don't know that that's been talked about enough, and I wanted your insider's opinion on some of that stuff.
Well, I'm glad they did it because it first of all, it affected change. The Cardinals were shamed into some immediate changes. I don't think they're going to keep charging for meals in the offseason or whatever crap they were doing. But yeah, the more of that, the better. There's so much invested in these players. You've seen the incredible physical toll it takes on them, and that's lifelong and ruinous in many ways. And yeah, they get paid a lot, but I started out covering Eddie DeBartolo and the Niners, and his attitude was anything I can do to make their realities any better or easier so that they can play hard for my benefit and my pleasure. I'm going to do. And many owners don't think that way. And so, I want every training room to be better, and I want ridiculousness like we're going to make them pay for their off-season meals in our team cafeteria. Like, come on, man. I mean, I once reported back in the it was after Eddie DeBartolo, and it was in the John York, Denise DeBartolo York active ownership era of the Niners, that I believe a player, I got to look up the player, it might have been Michael Robinson, some player signed and he got a signing bonus. It was, let's say it was $75,000, nothing major. And back then it was before direct deposit and they were mailing checks. They FedExed him his check for the $75,000 signing bonus, and the check was for like $74,971.05, and they deducted the FedEx fee. So, I think when I reported that, it wasn't a proud day for the 49ers, and I think the more of that, the better. So good for the PA for asking, and good for them for putting it out there. And look, I did owner rankings for years and years on SI.com and Yahoo.com, YahooSports.com before they hired me, possibly because my rankings were so brutal that they just wanted them to stop. And they were like, fine, we'll just pay you. And then I worked for NFL Network for 8 years. Now I don't work for them, so maybe I'll bring back those rankings. But I was pretty brutal and learned a lot. And, I didn't spare these billionaires' feelings. And, I think, to borrow a word from the late, great man whose jersey is behind you and is a friend of both of ours, as Junior would have put it, some owners got pretty moist over some of the things I put in there, and my attitude was good.
No, I think it's good to be held accountable. The only thing I saw about the survey, and just related to training rooms and whatever, I wish they would have been a little more transparent about the whole thing. It seemed a little bit Yelp-like. I mean, okay, let's say the Chiefs, for example.
Oh, it's totally Yelp-like.
I mean, you can't argue that the Chiefs did a great job with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and obviously you probably had a practice squad or other guy who complained, and that's not good. You want everyone to be treated the same. I get it, but
maybe Rick's got bad bedside manner. I don't know. Probably not. But I'm just saying, I hear you, but it's Yelp-like if Yelp were only accessible to the humans who, are in the industry. And like, it's Yelp-like if the employees are allowed to rate their restaurant facilities. So if it were fans weighing in on like, oh, I hate the Chiefs Stadium, I'd be like, yeah, God, stop it. It's another Twitter. But I mean, for better or worse, they polled the players. I mean, they asked their constituents. So it may not be fair. It may be more nuanced, but it is, la gente.
Well, I think it was great because they pulled the players. The only reason I compared it to Yelp is that the tendency, and they pulled all the players, but it seems like the newsworthy negativity got pushed to the top and the positive comments got pushed to the bottom. And that may have been their point, and it made more news.
But see, I whatever got pushed in terms of affecting change, I viewed it like, if you're the Minnesota Vikings, that should be a recruiting tool, both covertly or just both intangibly. Like, oh, wow, I'm thinking about joining an organization. Oh, yeah, I remember the Vikings got written up for having this great facility. But, like, if I'm the Minnesota Vikings and I'm trying to recruit a free agent, I'm like, hey, I know you've heard about our training facility. I can't wait to show it to you. By the way, here's a link. Here's what the players said about it. I think it could be like I think everybody needs to step up their game and try to use it as a positive recruiting tool. It's like the equivalent of, what Phil Knight did at Oregon with the locker room, right? I mean, make it cool.
I mean, I learned a lot from the survey too. Like, I was surprised that New England with their own plane got rated low with travel and everything,
I'm not surprised that anyone who is in that building would, express any form of misery. I've heard stories, I've heard, hey, they've got everything you'd ever want there to help you as a player, rehab, all that. And people just can't wait to get out of the building. But that's just because of the tone being set by the man in charge. It's just miserable. Now, he's a great coach and they've won an incredible amount, and having Tom Brady sure helps all of that. But like, if you think that's a great vibe, like, yeah, man, they love it. And they love coming into work in New England. It's great. Can't wait to get there. Do your job. Like, no, they're not. But, a lot of them would say it was worth it. So, yeah.
All right. Mike, thank you so much for all this time. Great chatting. We got to chat more, and I'll call you offline. A few other things that we can chat about. I appreciate you. Anything else that you want to tell everyone that you're up to now? You're up to so many different things.
Oh, I have a lot going on. I'm a columnist for the San Francisco Chronicle and for Bally Sports. I have a podcast on the Volume, open mic, that everybody should try to check out every time we drop a new episode. And I have a media company, Backstage Media, which has an incredible amount of exciting stuff soon to be announced. And I'm doing a book that will also be announced soon. So life is good. Just grinding, just hustling. And thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you. The great Mike Silver. Thanks. And we'll take a quick break and we'll be back with the rest of the Pro Football Doc Sports Injury Central podcast. It was great to have Mike Silver on. Those watching on YouTube, yeah, I'm wearing something different and a different background. We actually recorded that yesterday with Mike Silver on a Sunday. So we did get in the Brock Purdy news already, but we didn't get in on the slew of basketball injury news that we have this morning after yesterday's thing. Jacob's here and Taylor as well. Let's roll into part two. I think that's why when you ask me, normally I don't do a lot of podcast prep. You guys do more than I do.
You're a roll with the flow kind of guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just not a professional interviewer, but I know Mike's over. It's just a conversation. It's really pretty.
You guys are just swapping stories.
He had a lot of great stories. Yeah. I like the LT when dancing with LT's wife on the dance floor. That was a pretty good one.
Yeah, I could envision that. And I was going to get specific and ask him, was this at Confidential? I've been there the day with LT and what have you. But, I used to ask, where's Confidential? It's Confidential. Who's on first? Anyways, Mike Silver was good, and he's an interesting guy. I like Mike. I've gotten to know him.
He's awesome.
He's doing a lot of stuff. So
I've gotten to know him pretty well over the years as kind of just a friend and randomly, but it's good on him. He's done a lot of different things in life. Always good to have him on. All right, Jacob, where are we going for this part?
Yeah, NBA. You have a video that you made last night on all the top injuries affecting the playoffs. Giannis, Ja Morant, AD obviously came back in, but Stinger might be a little bit concerned for recurrence. Tyler Hero out with the wrist. Jaylen Brown had his cut open up. It's like There's a ton for round
was this
one.
was this an NFL Sunday or an NBA Sunday?
There's a
What's
ton for
going
round
on there?
one. Jeez, I don't know. But
I was at this first communion party for one of the Littles friends, kind of thing.
Can't
You guys are
escape it,
texting
yeah.
me, and I'm like, yeah, the game was on, but I
Yeah.
couldn't hear or see anything. Yeah, we made a video last night. People can check that out. Actually, go to YouTube, the Sports Injury Central YouTube channel, and subscribe, and you'll get the notifications for all that stuff. Well, let's start with Giannis Antetokounmpo.
That was good. That
we
was
gotta
solid.
retrain Taylor and you because Taylor trained you on the G.
Look, I got
I'm the worst.
It's
okay.
You can listen to
First of all, yeah, I mean, if I watch basketball, it's on mute. Okay,
Yeah.
so I don't hear his name. Yeah, I kind of knew it was Giannis, but first of all, yeah, I got so much grief. You got to know how to say his name. It's like, I got Antetokounmpo, right?
Yeah.
Can I get
That's
some
much
credit
harder,
there? and let me tell you, I thought about why I said Giannis instead of Giannis. First of all, this guy right here says it all the time.
All the time.
And second of all,
Giannis questionable.
this is going to be my thing, but my littlest one's bestie is named Gianna. And I call her
yeah.
Gianna all the
Way too
time.
close.
So Gianna. I mean, okay, no excuse, Giannis, but like, if I got so mad every time somebody spelled my name or pronounced my name, 4-letter name wrong, no, just joking. It's all good. Giannis. I have to start thinking Yanni.
Yeah.
Do you guys even
Yanni.
know who Yanni is?
Yanni Peralta.
Yanni who? Yeah.
Yanni, the easy listening, mellow elevator musician.
You lost
Wow.
me in the elevator. Yeah.
I gotta think Yanni.
We're stairs people.
Giannis. Well, here's the good news. Look, you don't listen to me for how I pronounce names and the other stuff, but for medical analysis, that looked like a bad fall, and everybody was like, whatever. Look, I'm not calling Giannis soft at all. He's proven he's tough, but he was more likely to return to the game. He didn't, than to miss the next week in the next game in 3 days.
Right.
And now this morning, Shams has now said he's I don't know,
Optimism for game twos.
The
Yeah.
flowers, it looks like they're blooming it up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, spasm got him. That was a bad fall. That's usually hurt and spasm, not injured. It's not a nerve. It's not that nothing's broken. And our preliminary 6 score in him is already 86. But depending on what happens, we might move him up into the 90s. We're just saying he's going to play. We're that sure he's going to play. Of course, what adds to it is they got beat at home.
Right.
Game
Low
one,
added
so
pressure to play.
I mean, he doesn't need the added pressure to play, but I remain very optimistic that Giannis will play and be fine.
With his play style, if that pops up middle of the game, is there anything to be done, or is it just kind of play through, sit him a little bit?
Well, I think you're going to see him, he might go to the locker room, we get stretched, heat pack on the sidelines, the hallway exercise bike,
Right.
That kind of stuff. But I expect him to be good to go. And that was in game when he was ruled out. I was like, I think he's going to make it the next game. So hopefully Shams' reporting is correct. So then that'll make us correct. But that's what I always say. We didn't beat Shams to the news. Shams is one of the top basketball reporters,
Right.
but we don't report. We do injury analysis. Our analysis was that we felt that he would play. There's no source that says that. It's just the analysis. So you could argue that we didn't beat him at all. He beat us in the reporting. We're not reporting a thing, but we beat him in the information based on analysis, and that's almost unfair. Let's hope. The other one, Ja Morant, everyone's pessimistic right now, downtrodden, the whole deal.
His
Not
comments
being able
after the game seemed like he just said it's one thing after another. He's dealt with a lot this season.
All right. Well, I don't want to hear
Yeah.
about that. Whatever. But the balling socks thing is what also people got up. He couldn't even unball his own socks. He threw the ball socks to a staffer so he could do that. So he was obviously in a decent amount of pain. and downtrodden.
It's not exactly like smashing a Gatorade thing with the bat or anything from frustration. But I get the frustration.
Punching the wall, breaking
I get
his
the
hand.
frustration from the timing. It was the last 4 minutes, and he's just sitting there with his hand wrapped, not able to come back in. So people don't think he's coming back for game 2.
Well, the timing is one thing. The video is another. The video looks bad.
Right.
But as we talked before the results, there's no fracture there. It just looks bad. His fingers and then wrist are twisted. And what do you think happens when you ice your hand down? Does it get looser or more stiff?
No, it feels terrible.
Yeah.
Are you surprised that he couldn't unball a sock? I don't think he's faking his injury.
No.
Right.
He was hurt.
It
I just don't
hurts.
think he's injured.
Right.
I think he was hurt.
Especially 3-day rest. They play Wednesday.
And
3-day rest.
Also down 0-1 too, just like
Yeah.
who?
At home. Yeah.
I'm not
I
gonna say his name.
mean, there's a lot of people in this world that, in the end, no matter how bad you're hurting, you have to unball your own sock because there's nobody there to do it for you.
It's true.
Okay. And I'm not calling him bad or lazy.
Yeah.
I just, there's people there. So
Right.
whatever. And I get why he'd be disappointed. He cares about winning, I would assume. Right.
Yeah.
And and his team lost the home game. I mean, I get it, but I still think he's going to make the bounce back and play.
I think the other shoe we haven't heard about is any ligament damage in the fingers. I think looking at the video, you said, if there's ligament damage, it would affect his shooting, which is not exactly what he's known
He already
for.
had him
So
buddy taped already before the game. It didn't look like it was
he
affected,
hit a
right?
couple threes. Like,
Yeah.
he's
Well, look, this is why our preliminary 6 score, and I think we've heard some feedback that it's high, but
Maybe 85. Yeah.
the 6 score is for this next game. We're
Mhm.
anticipating 85 right now, which means he's playing and reasonably effective, the type of player he is and whatever. And we'll adjust that as more news comes. We're not stuck on that. But the early going is we expect Morant to play. And I know old takes exposed, bookmark this, you're going to be wrong, you're wrong. But that's what the analysis
part of our
would-
thing, right? Yeah, we
would
got
say. I mean, that's what it looks like. This is what all we're going to say is what it looks like right now. From afar, no insider sources, etc. Anthony Davis returned to play. Stinger reportedly. The only worry there is it can happen again. He played better in the second half than the first.
Yeah.
It can happen again.
12, I believe. Yeah.
That's the only worry. And
Tyler Hero is the last one.
Tyler Hero, everyone's written him off for the season. I haven't written him off for the season as long as the Heat stay alive. They're going to have to stay alive
It's going to be the hardest
a
part
couple
without him.
rounds,
Yeah.
right? You guys are telling me the first round is like 2 weeks
Yeah.
long.
Yep.
Everything's stretched out.
4 to 6 weeks is the timeline. I expect him to have a broken metacarpal. If he has surgery on it, I think he can play in 4 weeks. 4 weeks might be the conference finals, but the
Yeah.
He'd have to get there.
Is there a chance he doesn't have surgery? He can let it heal or he should
It's
have surgery.
possible.
Okay.
It's possible.
Okay.
It's possible he doesn't have surgery, but I'm saying even if it's a bad one and he has surgery,
Mhm.
I wouldn't rule him out for these playoffs. But of course, the Heat might be ruled out before he's ready.
Right. The last one quickly is the Jaylen Brown cut on his right hand from the broken glass vase.
Can
or
I
whatever
actually
it was.
explain what happened? So he said it was dark in his house and he was watering the plants or something and he dropped it and then the vase and he picked up the vase and he didn't realize it was cracked. And that's how the cut happened.
Okay.
Interesting.
He's an avid gardener at midnight.
Let me tell you this.
Excuse
I
me.
don't know about you guys. Watering the vase, first of all.
Yeah.
First of all,
Or the plant in the vase.
Okay.
I guess. Plant in the vase. Yeah.
first of all, do plants go in vases?
No,
cut flowers
do.
go in
Yeah,
vases.
cut flowers.
There you go.
It may
There's
be
one.
terminology.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah.
Second of all, let's say assume it was a plant. I'll admit this. I don't know how many plants do we have in our house. I'm not sure. I can tell you I haven't watered a single one of them. I mean, have you guys watered a plant in your house?
I have 3 in my house and I made sure that they're not needing water because I will forget.
And we're not professional athletes in the playoffs, so
Watered
interesting at
a
times to do
plant.
that.
First of all, watered a plant. Strike one. I haven't
I
watered
agree
a
with that.
plant.
That's a good strike. Yep.
Watering a plant at night?
2.
Yeah.
Yep. Strike 2. Yep.
Plant in a vase?
2.5 maybe.
Could be, I suppose.
I'm stuck on picking up glass in the dark. Like that's an odd. That's like sticking your hand in a, when you're doing dishes. Like if there's a knife in there, you're gonna get cut probably, right?
And why would the cut be so deep that it would open up?
Yeah, he had 5 stitches in it and got them removed the Friday before the game, and then it opened up in the first quarter. He came back and had a hell of a game after that. But
His hand was the plant.
No,
I don't know.
no,
I don't
look,
know.
I'm just saying there's some question marks.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
impugning anything on this and whatever. And
So the stitches were taken out right a couple days before the game, and then during the game one, he left prematurely to it was leaking a little bit, and that's something that was probably expected. He just got a redressing and came back in.
yeah, I mean, obviously this is a deep cut, right? And I mean,
it was in the webbing, right?
Now I will admit that I've picked up broken glass before with my hands
in the light,
but in the light,
yeah.
And I don't think I ever squeezed hard enough to get a deep cut, right?
I mean, because you knew it was broken glass. Yeah.
Picked it up like basically using my fingers like chopsticks, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're not
I feel like I've dropped like a glass bowl at night because I'm getting my midnight cereal, and I feel like I've turned the light on to clean the mess up.
Maybe he wasn't trying to wake anyone else up in the house.
No, that's a good one.
That doesn't hold water. It's not a one bedroom.
It's a good one. It's a water.
I don't know where he lives, but he doesn't live in a one bedroom.
Yeah,
I guarantee you. No. He's not in a studio where someone's gonna. Anyways.
Yep.
All right,
non-issue play wise though. I think
he played well. Yeah, the first game.
Let's throw another one at you, detective, detective, whatever you are.
Like last week's podcast, we're being Quincy.
Yeah,
we talked about with cousin Sal when he and Bill Simmons called me Quincy. I mean,
we've already lost everyone under 40, so it's all right. they're not listening out to Quincy.
He said it.
40 might be a stretch too. It's interesting. It's coming up. It's obviously because
CSI. How about that?
There you go.
There you go. It's still on. It's gone like 20 years, but it's still on.
Oh, right. He just got jabbed
he
again.
Just had a slight jab. He didn't even need to do that one.
I don't know any TV shows that are on.
Nobody knows how to stream CSI. That's all.
You watch Succession, right?
You know, I just started again. We watched it a bunch, my wife and I. And honestly, I think season 3 got away from us and we just stopped.
They just did a new 4 one.
And now everyone's talking about season 4. So I was ready for season 4. 3. And now my wife says catch up 3. And I don't know. I fell asleep in the first episode.
There's something
3.
pretty monumental,
stick with it.
like big happened in the new season. That's why everybody is like, if they lost you on 3, they want you to jump back 4 because there's
no, but I mean, the half hour, 40 minutes I saw was, and you're going to be the leader. No, you're going to be the leader now. And you're going to be like, I was just can we just pick a leader already? Let's move on. I don't know.
No, for sure.
I'll try and stick with it. Succession. Yes.
So something that came up recently last week, making the news in the NFL, OBJ at his Baltimore Ravens press conference was talking at length about how he played with the Rams without an ACL, which is actually something he tweeted July 2022, that he played the second half of the season with no ACL, that he learned about it. But basically his full quote is, he learned week 9. Dr. Neil Elitrach came to him and said, hey, not sure if you're aware, but you don't have an ACL. We can do surgery right now if you want. And then OBJ is saying, I just said, I'll play the rest of the season. I'll fall on the sword type stuff. So I want to get your take on that, Doc. Obviously there's a lot of unknowns. I mean, we don't.
Well, first of all,
we need to get him on.
We need to get him on and explain some of that.
Yeah.
OBJ Odell. I texted you. Call me. Come on and explain.
He's ignoring you.
He didn't answer me.
Yeah.
I'm just
got
having
a lot going on. He's
I'm just having fun. Now that he's with the team, he probably has to go through team PR and everything. So it probably isn't going to happen. But all we do is give him a chance to clarify what it is, and I'd ask him medically what it is. And by the way, I do believe he's going to do very well. I too thought by the numbers he got overpaid, and you guys educated me. All the people were getting money around him, and I said, he's probably getting paid the right amount.
Yeah, right.
Because I expect him to be very effective with all this time coming back from his ACL. So I'm behind you, Odell. I think you're going to have a good year. I think the Ravens got to figure out who's going to throw him the ball, but I think the Ravens have a reasonable deal. I don't think they overpaid him.
Do you think Jalen Hurts' new deal today snowballs his, or is that not something that usually happens? Is that like, I don't know how that works in the room, like GM sees another deal from the same position. How does that
that's a good
affect
point.
him?
Well, one of the reasons why every deal has to be the biggest and the highest is agent driven.
Right.
They have to spin it so this is the highest, so they did something.
Yeah.
Now, the early deal, and we'll come back to Odell in a second.
Mhm.
The early deal on Jalen Hurts that I saw is he got a good number. He's quote the highest. Only 100 or 110 million of it or whatever it was guaranteed. Only. I mean,
Right.
that's plenty of money, right?
Well, they ever
But-
wants Deshaun Watson, right? The 180 plus or whatever.
But
yeah.
it's not a fully guaranteed deal.
Right.
Yeah. And that's
so
what Lamar wants. That's what's holding up negotiations reportedly. So,
but then again, there isn't the agent involved and some of the ego, but maybe that's worse. I don't know. I don't know what's holding that deal up.
Yeah.
A lot of times the rubber has to meet the road. And right now there's no defining, things happen at deadlines.
yeah,
Mhm.
there's no deadline
There's
pressure.
no real deadline pressure
Right.
here.
Exactly.
Look, the Aaron Rodgers, I talked about it with a friend, and now media is on it. The deadline for the Aaron Rodgers trade, Jets and Packers, is during the draft.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because once
Before
you
the Jets
trade
pick.
away,
Yeah.
once you pick your draft picks,
You're
you can't
yeah.
trade them away
Yeah.
anymore. Then it becomes more protracted game of chicken.
Right.
But the deadline is the draft, or maybe even during the draft, depending
Right.
on how the draft works out. And those draft deals are worked out, ahead of time. Something else came up. What did Eli was on Pat McAfee
Mhm.
this last
Yeah,
week?
talking about I think a week and a half ago, maybe.
Week and a half ago.
Yeah.
Huh? And you guys might remember exactly what he said about he wasn't sure and what happened, and
Inside the draft room, whatever.
Yeah,
inside the draft
yeah,
room.
Yeah.
I don't know when it was, just years ago. We talked about it on a podcast here. I was lucky enough to be in that draft room when Eli was drafted. First of all, there aren't a lot of people in the draft room. There's a big boy table.
You always say you're at the kids' table.
I'm at the kids'
Yeah, I always
table.
said
That's
that.
where I was. I
Yeah.
was like here in this room. We had this big conference room. I was in the room in the corner with
Yeah. High
and
seat, the high seas and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was at the kids' table. I
Right,
wasn't
right.
at the main table. I mean, I could see all the names on the boards from afar, but I didn't dare walk by the draft board and like
Who we going with?
actually
Yeah.
see
Get a picture
every
by
little
it, you know?
specific
Yeah.
kind of thing. But look, the OC isn't in the room. The DC isn't in the room. So there's not a lot of people in the room. There are no scouts in the room. I mean, so it's an exclusive room, but there's no question I was at the kids' table. But what I observed clearly is, I mean, there was a discussion about, the Raiders pick second. So if you don't pick Eli, you're giving Eli to the Raiders potentially.
Yeah, division.
But also, who was the big line? I forget. I'm blanking on his name now. I knew it. The huge offensive lineman, can't miss player, Robert Gallery.
Oh, I'll say the Rolling Raiders guy. Yeah, horrible. Sorry.
Robert Gallery. He was the other one. Like,
Yep.
well, should we just take Robert Gallery? But if we take a quarterback, we're going to give Robert Gallery to the Raiders. And obviously, Robert Gallery didn't really work out.
Mhm.
But here's what I remember: we took Eli, and I know there was a little discussion about Gallery and Raiders, but took Eli. That was it. Eli had the, funny face on stage, the whole
Yep.
deal. The room was very quiet and tense. And when the Giants were up at number 4, when they picked Phillip Rivers, there was a fist pump and cheer in the room. And immediately after Phillip Rivers was chosen by the Giants, AJ Smith's phone rang in front of him. He picked it up, and then he actually stepped out of the room to take the call. So the deal was worked out. It was a game of chicken, in my impression. Look, this is what we want for him. We know you want Rivers. We know you guys want Eli. This is what we want to have happen. The deal wasn't consummated. I think it was a game of chicken. Maybe the Giants are saying maybe the Chargers will blink and take Phillip with the first pick, and we don't need to trade a thing,
Right.
and we'll get Eli. But we, AJ Smith, stuck to his guns, took Eli, didn't blink. But I think they knew that the Giants didn't really want Rivers. So the second Rivers was chosen, they were like, yes, this deal is going to be done. But the parameters were worked out.
Yeah.
But I think that happens a lot. The parameters are worked out at what
You don't
might
just
work
jump
for
into
you.
it right there. You only have a limited time, so they have to have some kind
Yeah,
of
so I
skeleton
think
work
that's
done.
what's going to happen with the Jets and the Packers.
Right.
Why didn't he want to play for the Chargers, Eli? I may be missing something.
Well, at
What
the
was it?
time, we were terrible.
Uh-huh.
We were small market. Dad was saying he
Yeah.
didn't want to come. I
Right.
mean, look, how did we get the top pick in the draft?
By being
Because
bad.
we were
Yeah, by
terrible.
being bad, yeah. That's how the Raiders are right by there. Yeah.
I
being
mean,
bad.
that's how we got the top pick in the draft. You
Right.
know, I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, I don't remember. That was 2004.
Four.
I
I'm looking at it right
guess.
now. Yep. 2004.
1999, I think we were 1-15. I think, or so, I don't know. We had some bad years in there.
Mm-hmm.
No, was it 2004? Is it
2004 draft is what we're talking about.
Is
Yeah.
the dra-
yeah.
yeah, that is it. Yeah, and actually, 2004 is the first year we actually got good. First AFC West title
Wow.
in 2004 with Drew Brees.
Yep.
With Phillip on the bench, and that's a whole nother story. We can go back over that. Anyways, back to Odell Beckham. Okay. Here's my thought, and this is no inside information. I am not calling OBJ a liar. It's all in the interpretation. Very hard to play wide receiver without an ACL at all. Look, Phillip Rivers played in that AFC Championship game literally without an ACL, but it's Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
He's a quarterback, a pocket guy, not exactly mobile. The ACL, I always say, is an internal seatbelt, so that when you slam on the brakes or get into an accident, your knee doesn't go through the windshield. Phillip Rivers wasn't going to be driving high speed or cutting, or he's not racing NASCAR or IndyCar. Odell Beckham potentially is. Is it possible that he played completely without an ACL at all? That'd be pretty risky and pretty ballsy for the Rams team physician to pass him on his physical and then potentially take the liability.
Right.
People say it was ballsy of me to allow Phillip to do it, but Phillip had a brace on. Odell Beckham didn't have a brace on when he played. And then he quote retore it, or his knee gave out in the Super Bowl. What I think happened is he was notified his ACL really wasn't fully doing its job. The seatbelt was frayed, wasn't that strong. So it wasn't there in full, right? But something
But it was there. Yeah, it wasn't just empty
is my
space.
guess.
Yeah,
the
It's
best
not
guess.
fully helping. Yeah.
And Ian Rappaport referred to a little bit. Something wasn't fully right. And the interesting thing is the first surgery was done per Ian Rappaport by Andrews.
Yeah.
Right? He
Yep.
talked about it on Pat McAfee show. And then the Rams doctor they kind of battle on second opinions. And it was
Yeah.
interesting. He said, well, that ACL wasn't good,
Yeah.
right?
Usually that doesn't happen in public.
No, that was
that
what
was interesting the way that
about it.
happened. Yeah.
Yeah, and I still remember, I think it was on Pat McAfee that Pat asked him, and he named Andrews as the original
Yeah.
surgeon.
Yeah.
And they even talked about on the show, did something go wrong or what happened?
And it's always good stuff, right? When they have surgery. So that's why when you saw that, you're like, why are they talking? It's not ever like that. You know?
Yeah, but in any case,
Yeah.
that's what I think happened. He had a graft that wasn't as strong as it could be, should be, had signal on the MRI, maybe some early increased laxity, but you couldn't tell me that his knee was
Right.
loose completely with nothing there. Just the seatbelt wasn't fully there. There's no shoulder strap, just a lap.
I'm loving the seatbelt thing. It's like so
It
easy.
makes
It's so
sense.
easy to
But
visualize.
That's
Either way, he has an ACL now, right? He's going into the
Yes, and-
season with an ACL.
yeah, and I
Has one
think,
now.
and he's gonna have like a year and a half
Yeah.
from the surgery.
January 21.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah.
February even.
February.
Yeah.
February. Excuse me. Yeah,
So-
yeah.
I think he's gonna do well,
Right.
and so I hope.
I'm thinking
all
it's
the-
gonna be like 875. You go over that? It's gonna be like 850, 875.
Depends on who he's throwing on the ball.
Yeah, it depends on a lot.
I hope they
Ravens.
posted it at 600.
Oh, I'll do that now. 600. No, I just think it's gonna be once Lamar. I think it will. Yeah, because they're not gonna post it until
No, I have some
yeah.
optimism there for
Yeah.
Odell Beckham. So, Odell, still love you. Text me back. Just kidding. You're fine.
Just want to mention real quick, quick Google search of players who played without an ACL: Joe Namath, John Elway, and Hines Ward.
Joe Namath, you're a
Joe
fucking-
Namath, look, we didn't really reconstruct ACLs back. This
Yeah.
before the MRI era, right? Everything was a knee sprain. It was called a trick knee. There's actually some bracing that was invented around Joe Namath that was early
bulky
ACL
things,
bracing.
Yeah.
Look, yeah, he played without an ACL because even when he had surgery on it, we didn't rebuild his ACL back in that day. I mean, so different.
I think that was the case with Elway too, right? They said he tore his in high school, and
Yeah,
there
it
wasn't
was early
really
on.
there wasn't really a ACL reconstruction back then, 1978 or something, late 70s.
There are some sports that you can play without an ACL. Hockey is known as one because it's a bent knee, crouch gait sport. So it's running, jumping, cutting sports with your knee near extension. Hockey, I think you can get away with it. Depends on associated
defenseman.
damage.
If you have to backpedal, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I know of cases of hockey guys. Hines Ward, I don't know what that's all about.
Yeah, I
He
was
was
gonna say,
in-
I think that takes
yeah.
more research on my part. That might be an article out of that because
Yeah.
I can't imagine that he played the whole career without an ACL. He said he learned at the combine, and it was a bike accident as a kid that they told him he didn't have an ACL after that.
I had a bike accident before, and I
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't
I
know.
mean, it's just we know what an ACL does, and just because you can do it once doesn't mean you can do it twice. Since you don't like analogies, I say this to people all the time. Another way to look at it is there's 4 main ligaments in your knee, like 4 legs on a bar stool.
Mhm.
If one of the legs on the bar stool is off, short, broken, something, the bar stool wobbles, but you can still sit on it, sit at the counter, but don't stand on it to change a light bulb.
Right.
I mean, that's the analogy. All right, what else we got?
Beast of the week. Taylor had a good one. Dodgers announced they re-signed Andrew Tolles. Hadn't played in the league since 2018, but reportedly missed spring training in 2019. It was diagnosed with bipolar and schizophrenia after, so they're re-signing him, not with the intention of him hitting the field, but so that they can cover his medical bills.
There's been videos of him like Delonte West from the NBA where he's just walking around like, looked like he was homeless or not having any attention towards him. So it's good that the Dodgers are doing this.
We've come a long way. I still remember, I don't know how many years ago, Alonzo Spellman, Ohio State D lineman with the Bears, was fined for not wanting to have surgery, which you can't fine a guy for doing that. And then he was found wandering around Chicago bare feet along the highway or something like that. And this mental health issue is real. I applaud the Dodgers for doing this. This is great. Mental health issues coming more to the forefront.
Winter in Chicago, yeah. Winter in Chicago.
It's winter in Chicago. But in any case, good on the Dodgers. We talked about with Mike Silver, the owners getting grilled for stuff. I wish we'd be a little less negative. Remember who's Devin Still and his daughter?
Mm-hmm. Oh, the Bengals player. Yeah.
So the Bengals kept him on for longer for insurance
absolutely.
reasons.
Yep.
Right.
The Texans, who kind of get a bad rap, kept one of the Quisenberry brothers. I forget which one.
David or Scott, one of those.
There's 3 of them.
Oh, there's 3. Oh, so
There's 3 of them.
Alrighty, that's good. I gotta
reevaluate.
We got David and Scott down.
There's 3 of them. I get them confused too. I should say this, but small world. Their dad actually was at the communion yesterday.
David Quisenberry, non-Hodgkins. Yeah. He was at the what?
At the communion.
Oh, okay. Oh, cool. Small world. Yeah.
Papa Quisenberry,
yeah.
Whatever. There's three boys that have played some in the NFL. So David Jr. The Texans kept him on for a couple years.
Yeah.
When he wasn't playing for insurance reasons. So good on them, and I think we should publicize that as much as sometimes teams get grief for charging players for dinner or lunch or whatever.
Right. Paul, Scott, and David.
See, there's 3.
Yeah, there's 3. Yep.
Yeah,
they all played. Yep.
Which one's with Buffalo?
Buffalo is David.
Yeah, David.
Oh, David's the one that came from there to Buffalo.
Scott's actually went to the Texans after his brother was already there. And then Paul, he has a Patriots jersey on his picture, but I'm not sure.
I don't think Paul's in the league right now.
Yeah, he's not. He was a tight end. He was a different position than the other 2 as well.
So there you go. That's pretty good.
Oh, I'm seeing La Jolla here. That's why you saw them. They're
big fellas.
They're close. The Quisenberries are close. I see that. It says La Jolla, so I know La Jolla.
All right. Thanks again to Mike Silver. Thanks, you guys. Let's see, more basketball, baseball season's here. Tatis is coming back. Joe Musgrove's around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Lots to talk about. Hopefully we won't have another NFL Sunday for NBA. And thanks for watching. Hit subscribe for YouTube or the podcast at Apple or wherever you listen. And check out Sick Insights. It's quick twitch, the only place for injury immediate, including in-game analysis as opposed to reporting. And, you know, I've done some basketball before, but we've got John Heffernan for the Bulls on board and others. Amalgamated opinions for some of these injuries from what I like to say, and you guys hate this, I know, from doctors who, quote, were in the room when it happened. NFL,
Hamilton,
NBA.
Yep, your Hamilton thing.
Have you seen Hamilton?
Still need to.
I've seen it. Yeah,
You've seen it?
just not with Miranda.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah,
I'm very proud of myself. Hamilton's on Disney Plus. This is what I think
it
of
is. Yep.
The other day, my son was watching Padres and they were getting beaten. I was like, I'm bored here. And my little one went into downstairs, another room, and she was playing with her toys. And I went and kind of joined her downstairs because I was bored with the Padres. And I was like, oh, I've been wanting to watch this. And you're going to say, who? Bono and the Edge?
I know Bono a little bit.
Who's the Edge?
I don't know.
What group are they with?
It sounds like a wrestler, but I don't know.
I don't know.
U2?
There you go.
I know Bono's U2.
Oh, now you know.
Yeah.
I happen different era. I happen to like U2.
You're allowed to. Yeah,
That's fine.
So I want to see Bono and the Edge, and it was a special narrated by David Letterman. And you're going to say, who's David Letterman?
Oh, I got that.
I
No,
know-
come
we
on.
know David Letterman.
Yeah.
In
We're
college,
more,
I
we're more
used to,
comedy than music. So
I used to watch David Letterman.
They have a
a bunch.
degree of where he was at college at for everybody that gets C pluses because that's what he got at school, and it's for like whatever
scholarship.
media, whatever.
What school?
Ball State.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
What state is it in?
Indiana.
Yeah, oh, shoot, you're on it.
Take me to a trivia. Let's go La Jolla
Okay.
Trivia Bar.
So, anyways, very proud of myself.
Mhm.
Without any instruction, help from the kids or wife, I turned on Disney Plus and actually watched Bono and the Edge.
Wow, you did all that yourself.
Wow.
When the daughter's playing, then she fell asleep in my lap, and I watched the rest of it.
No excuses this season,
You
Doc.
and me have taken 10 minutes to put Amazon Prime on your TV before, so this is like a huge step in the right
Huge.
direction. Yeah,
I hate to tell you, YouTube TV is going to be a nightmare for you. So
Oh, we have the new football stuff.
And we'll have to figure that. You'll have to figure
sorry,
that
we
out.
got,
Yeah,
we got,
you
a,
don't have
we got a
to,
couple
yeah.
months.
Yeah.
All right, enough banter here. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.